Hello friends, it's episode 2 of the Alphabet Challenge. Let's not waste any time. Just kidding. Let me tell you the options first. Today's episode is brought to you by the letters E, F, G, and H. Starting with E, here is all the books in my TBR closet that start with E. A sequel to a 5-star, Everyone Wants to Rule the World Except Me. Another book by an author that I recently gave 4.5 stars, The Examiner. Another book by an author I've given 5 stars. This is Eileen. A book that I bought because of the cover and because it's a prize winner, Everything Under. Another book by an author I've given 5 stars to before. This is Erasure. Another book by an author I've given 5 stars to before. This is Entitlement. One I bought because I think of recommendations. This is Eyes, Guts, Throat, Bones. An anthology of ghost stories, Echoes. And another book by an author I've given 5 stars to before. That's Brom with Evil in Me. Wow, now we could say that's definitely a trend in my closet that I didn't even realize until now. Like, the books in there are books that I tend to buy because I've loved that author before. There's 9 picks on here. The other 3 pie slices are a book that's intimidating. The most intimidating to me, that would probably be Echoes. Another one is Viewer's Choice, which means I go to the comments of the last video and see what you guys chose for E. And the last one is a book I think I will give 5 stars. And that would be almost impossible to pick because, like I just said, I've given all of these authors such high ratings before. So it's a good thing I don't have to choose because that's not what I spun. I did spin the wheel at the beginning of the video and I'm keeping that footage. So let's find out what it was. Let's not waste any time. And the book is Erasure by Percival Everett. Sounds like the perfect pick for me right now. I loved James. I loved the trees. Like, how could this not be a win? And if I give this 5 stars, then Percival Everett becomes one of my favorite all-time authors. Once I start reading it, I will go ahead and tell you what it's about and my first impressions. I've only seen a handful of reviews for Erasure, but I would say almost all of them mention the fact that they didn't know going in that the book inside the book would be as prominent as it was. So I went into it with the right expectations, and yet I still am struggling with the story inside the story, because it's a novel that has been written by an author, and this author is going to go on to be known for this book that he doesn't want to be known for, and be up for awards that he doesn't want to win, because not because he doesn't think he deserves it, but because he thinks his book doesn't deserve it. But the book world, and especially white people, he's a Black author writing about the Black experience, but in a very narrow way. A lot of the white book community is like, oh my gosh, this is the Black experience that I've always wanted to read, and it's so fantastic. It's so well written. It really gives me insight into this entire community. Meanwhile, the intent behind that novel was something more just for him and more of like a criticism of authors. So with the story inside the story, I'm almost done it, I think, and then we can move back into the regular narrative. I want to know how important it is for me to finish it, because it's not a fun read, you know what I mean? But it's also not supposed to be a good read necessarily. I love books inside of books for many reasons. One, just because I love following authors and I love people who have a passion for their career. And often when there's a book inside a book, like, we're getting like another type of that author style. So sometimes there's like a fantasy book inside a fiction book and we get like multiple things going on. And something that I really like about books inside of books is thinking about how the author wrote that thing and how they're trying to exude what the author within the book would be capable of writing. And a lot of times when there's a book inside the book, there is frequent critique. I can't think of an example at this time, but I know something will come to me, like probably while I'm editing. I remember reading something specific where people were like, oh, this story within the story is trash, or it's not well written, or something. But like, that's the point, is that the author inside the book, this is an example of their writing, not necessarily like what the best that the actual author of the book could come up with. Oh, one of the examples would be Death of the Author. That is something that's so hard to talk about, and I just need more people to read it in general. I know there's a lot of people who hate that book, validly, totally, but finishing that book and then critiquing the writing of the book is like so crazy, because it's an example of somebody else writing a book. Anyway, so this, I wouldn't say that is necessarily poorly written, and in fact, I think there's something to be said for the author who's inside this book is a good author. And so even though he's penning something that isn't supposed to be taken a certain way, it's like he can't help but put his authorial voice into there. But worse was to take it as not something that he would be proud of. So it's just a fun thing to get to think about afterwards, but I don't want to be reading it anymore. And I wonder if it's actually going to matter. I feel like it's not going to matter, the actual plot that's inside that book, to the outside narrative. The outside narrative has Thelonious Monk Ellison in his writing career, obviously, but it's also like a lot of his family dynamics. He is trying to figure out what to do with his mother, who is struggling with her memory, with her abilities, and all of the various dynamics around her and her life and his family. But that was only 60 pages until we got into this within it. I'm definitely intrigued to see what's going to happen with this award situation, because he's writing it under a pen name. Is he going to want to be exposed for being the author of it? I think things are going to continue to ramp up and there's going to be a lot of tension to come. That's what I can anticipate, and I want to get to that. So I'm up at Big White today. Liam and his friends are snowboarding. I was just hanging out in the lodge. It was a good time. There's this collection of men who the last 3 times we've been here this week, they take over the couches in the back corner. There's new couches there now. There's like 4 of them. And I think they set them up in a little square and they're there all day. And like, so am I. It's so crazy how every time I've been up here, they've been up here. I don't know if they're on vacation. I don't know if they live up here. I should have asked, because I was chatting with one of them for quite a while. He was complimenting my hair and he was showing me pictures of his grandkids and their red hair. And I was like, sorry, this isn't actually real. And he was like, it's not. And I was like, no, but I wished it was. And that's why I dye my hair red, because I grew up my whole life thinking that my grandma's red hair was real. And I was like, why couldn't I have gotten my grandma's red hair? Turns out once I became an adult, I realized she was dyeing her hair, and so was I. Anyway, we were talking about the best breakfast spots up here, and I got to recommend one because Rob and I were just up here and tried out one. There was a really good granola. In another world, in another tax bracket, I own one of these little cabins up here, one of the condos or one of the cabins, and I just spend all winter up here. Wouldn't that be magical? Saving myself 2 hours every time we want to drive up. I love it up here. I'm sad to leave, but we're really lucky we got so much snow. I thought the snow was going to be over for the year, but spring break is proving a lot colder than I think anybody anticipated. Okay, I need to go to bed, but I need to tell you my final thoughts about this. And it's funny trying to talk about this book. I'll explain why. First of all, it's 4 stars. This is technically my least favorite Percival Everett, but I still think it was fantastic. James certainly should be, of the 3 that I've read, his most celebrated. Totally makes sense. The Trees, though, is genius. And Erasure was really interesting, highlighting especially how art can reinforce stereotypes is just such an interesting topic to take on, especially with how much Black culture influences culture broadly. Zooming out and talking about how non-Black folks obviously perform their racial bias regularly, but even within witnessing, appreciating, and consuming Black culture, it's still from such a selfish perspective. What am I gaining from consuming this? How are people going to look at me when I talk about consuming this? Without interrogating at all what it is about what you're consuming, or in turn ignoring within the culture that makes it authentic to you or palatable to you. What makes talking about this book so funny is because of the topic. Even in applauding a Black author for this work, I can't help but be speaking about the fictional white characters within the novel. Percival Everett knew what he was doing with this one. He has this very specific sense of humor, and I know based on the funny things that I'm grasping and I'm seeing, I can't even fathom how many references I'm missing. Because there are so many things that I'm like, I don't really know what that reference is talking about, but I get the overall. No, there are so many things that I know that I'm missing. This was published, I'm pretty sure, back in 2001. Yeah. And he has so much stuff that I need to go back and enjoy. So that's the first book, and I'll talk to you when it's time for the F's. Just kidding, I already filmed that portion. Kayla from 2 weeks ago, take it away. Next letter, we have F. I also have 9 books, just like E's, 9 books starting with F. Francie's Got a Gun, The Fiction Writer, Friends to Lovers, Five Little Indians, Fever House, Friends Like These, Fairy Tale, Fates and Furies, and The Final Strife. What do I most want to spin? I think a thriller, Cameron Lua Crate, or Five Little Indians, because everyone tells me this is going to be a 5-star. And I kind of am in the mood for a romance, so Friends to Lovers would be a good pick too. What I most want the wheel to spin though is either Fairy Tale or Fever House, because I don't know when I'll ever get to such a big book without the motivation of it being for a video, and I don't have any video plans that this fits into. And I think the same is true for Fever House, but also just like big, thick, long, that's all the same word for the same thing, horror books. When will I make myself read this? The other slices are viewer's choice, where I go to the comments and I see what you wanted me to read. Favorite first line, that's fun. I forgot I made these wheels when I finished the last video, so like it was 2 months ago at this point. Forgot about that. And then, oh, Rob chooses. Okay, well, he's not here. Someone told me last time I need to spin it harder, so let's try. Five Little Indians. Okay, I feel like that's a good pick. Yeah, that's a good pick. Okay, okay, here's the thing. I know I'm gonna love this. Oh, look, pink circle, it was meant to be. I just feel like, I mean, at this point, you know that it's the same day. I just changed my shirt to keep things visually interesting, but I just spun Erasure, and then I'm spinning this, and I feel like I know what I'm gonna spin for H. You'll see why. And I feel like I'm reading a lot of heavy things, so I'm excited about it, but no, okay, I'm excited about it. I'll let you know when I start reading it. Of course, we know at this point that Erasure wasn't super heavy, so this isn't a worry back to back. I will get back to filming like the wheel spins after I finish each book, but this month I just had to know my TBR beforehand just to be prepared for certain things. Oh, I had a bookmark in here. It must have fallen out. I don't know where I was. I think I was nearing halfway. Oh gosh. Anyway, this is also an okay read because it's not, I don't want to say it's not as heavy as I was anticipating, but I will say I've had this on my TBR for years, and I think I just assumed, because I haven't read this synopsis in so long, and this little blurb at the top says the first time he'd seen the mission, he was 6 years old, crammed into a boat with a dozen or so little kids, the steeple piercing the clouds as though it floated above them all unhinged from the earth. And I just had this idea because I've read other books set in residential schools that are following young children. I thought this would be following little kids, and it was going to be like really hard to read. And it is hard to read, but it's not following young children. It's following, they start the book as teenagers just approaching adulthood, and then we follow these characters through a good portion of their life. And it's a lot of reflection on residential schools, the trauma that was placed on them, the horrific things that are done in this system, how that affects their day-to-day lives and all of their relationships with one another and society and other people as a whole. The opening was especially difficult. There was a character who was trusting, which is fair, of kind of anybody as she escapes, and she gets herself into a situation or people prey upon her, and there's a sexual assault implied that we're headed towards, and she's just trying to find people that she knows, people who can help her, and she finds someone, and then we follow like that person in the next chapter. And that's kind of how the book has gone so far, is each chapter we're being introduced to somebody new, and then we learn more about them and what they're currently up to. This is set in Vancouver, which is really near me, and there was even like mentions of the Okanagan where I live, and a lot of references of locations that are familiar to me. So that's an interesting part of the story for me. I'm assuming the author lives here. Michelle Good is a writer of Cree ancestry and a member of the Red Pheasant Cree Nation in Saskatchewan. She did creative writing at UBC and lives and writes in South Central British Columbia. Same. Especially in our area where we live, in the Okanagan and nearby Kamloops and stuff, there is very much reconciliation to still be done, very much responsibility to still be taken for the horrific things that occurred in these residential schools. The book is well written and interesting, and today I'm just getting ready because, well, I'm getting ready because it's the morning and that's what I do. But today is a had a busy day. We're gonna go out and get Liam all of his stuff for baseball because we just got the email for baseball, not tryouts, evaluations. And of course it's like 48 hours from now. And he's definitely gonna need a new bat because they have to use a different drop this year, which is like how the length of the bat relates to the weight of the bat. I guess when you're in U18 compared to U15, it's quite different. He's probably gonna need new cleats and new batting gloves and I think new pants. Then there's a couple appointments we have today, and then I'm picking up a sourdough flight. There's this local lady who has this home bakery, and every single month, I think she used to do it weekly, but right now she's doing it monthly. We all join this little Facebook group and vote on the flavors that we want of the month. And I am riding so hard for a dill one. I made Rob join the Facebook group just so he could vote too. I think the one that's gonna win for sure is like this Italian urban cheese, which sounds fine. I really wanted the chili oil one, but I guess she did that recently because no one is voting for it. There's this hot honey one that sounds good, and she's baking them all today. Oh my God, she's probably like making them right now. And then we get to go pick it up and try it. And I don't even like bread like that. Like I don't really buy bread, but I was really just craving it like that in some kind of dip. Like that's all I want to eat for dinner. Anyway, I will check in with you probably when I'm finished with this. Okay, we got all of our new stuff we needed. I'm in the outfield. You'll tell me if the ball is gonna come at me, right? I finished Five Little Indians and I'm giving this 4 stars. I think it was really well written. It looks at a variety of people. I think everyone reading will find some connection with somebody, and it gave very different perspectives from people who don't necessarily or want to claim the survivor label, what they want to do with that, people who are against it, people who want to forgive the school, how trauma can result in drug addiction, in cycles of abuse and low self-worth, and a lot of oh my God, I almost died. And I think it gives a lot of hope for characters, but also the purpose of it isn't like, oh, look how incredible life can be after adversity. It's giving a mix of things. It's giving hope. It's giving a realistic depiction of life after trauma, life during trauma. Like trauma is not over for many of these characters. And I think as far as like connecting with a certain character or a certain perspective, Michelle Good also really well develops each character and each character's perspective, so you don't feel like there's only one that is like stronger than the rest. So you're not like, oh, I wish I could get back to this perspective. It follows everybody through a good amount of time and covers a lot of different topics and different lives that people are living, and like reconnecting with the people who endured the same thing as you, and if that's valuable or detrimental to your healing journey. That was all 4 of them? Oh, okay, I gotta go get the balls now. This is everyone's favorite part, where I walk around handheld and you get really dizzy. Good catch. Oh my God, they're so far away. There must be a stabilizing mode on this camera. I've just never found it. I've never looked for it. He just threw the ball right at his head. He just threw the ball right at his foot. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I missed it. Is anyone else scared of balls? Because like I can catch it, but it's also really fast. Here's Liam's new bat. Maybe I need to play a sport so I don't have to live vicariously through him, because we were in the store and there was like all of these beautiful bright colors and the beautiful pastel colored bats, and he didn't want any of them. He wanted beige. So that's what we got, but we traded in his old bats for baseballs. So now we have 1,000,000 baseballs. So when I go out in the field, I can take my sweet time because they have 6 balls to play with. Now they're playing catch, which I'm obviously bad at because I'm scared of balls, but I can pitch. I mean, when I say I can pitch like I can accurately get it near him for him to hit, but I think he's still gonna be frightened when he goes to his evaluations tomorrow, because it's like 18-year-olds who are gonna be whipping that ball right at him, and I can't recreate that. I can't help him. There's nothing I can do to prepare him for that. It's now time for the G's, and I don't want another literary fiction. So maybe like I should curate the wheel a little bit more. Like I just don't want another sad general fiction. But here are our 10 G options. Ghost Wall, The Gathering Dark, God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater, Galapagos, Grey Dog, The Good Wife of Bath, The Glutton, The Gone Dead, Girl Dinner, and Greenwood. There's no option on here that says my choice, but if it was my choice, I would pick one of the ones that feels more like genre fiction. We do have blurbs choose, which I don't even know what I meant when I wrote that. Like I read the blurbs on the back. So damn readable and fun. It breaches the walls of history. The blurbs that sound most intriguing, or finding a blurb from an author that I love or whose blurbs that I trust. And then the other one, of course, is viewer's choice, where I go into the comments and I see what you would have selected. I don't want anything that's gonna make me feel sad. But even the horror that I have, I know leans more literary. And I think these are just as literary. So I'm truly not going into this hoping for anything. I think I'll feel equally excited and daunted at the same time. Ready? Oh, girl dinner. Girl dinner. Girl dinner. Okay, yes. That's what I wanted. Oh, me and Olivia Blake. We've met 2 times before. It didn't go well. This is very unfortunately a voiceover. I filmed this clip in the wrong setting, so it has no sound. I'm telling you that I started Girl Dinner and I got my sourdough flaked. I have no idea what I was saying about Girl Dinner, but I was probably telling you that the other 2 books that I read from Olivia Blake, I gave 2 and 3 stars. This is my last chance. There's blood on the cover, and I have blood. There's blood dripping from my finger. I was putting a book away, Death in Her Hands, Death in Her Hands, like what a scary title. When I paper cutted myself, worse than I've ever paper cutted myself. So my witchy powers were not doing me well today. I just wanted to tell you the sourdough flavors, if I liked them or not. Let me find Rob. See if you can remember what we were saying. I have 4 sourdough loaves. Ooh, you said...
Ooh, that's strong.
Oh, and you were yelling in my ear, and then I told you to stop yelling at me. This one looked burnt. This is the hot honey and Asiago.
I don't think it looks burnt. I think it's just the honey has a higher smoke point.
It smells burnt. Oh, and I couldn't cut it. It was making a horrible noise. Bam.
Ooh, look at the color.
I just really stuck it up my nose.
Yeah. I look a little disgusted with you putting your face too close to it.
Yeah, I rated this one, I feel like a 6 out of 10.
I said I really like the texture.
I liked it a lot, and then I tasted the other ones, and that one was the worst.
I would agree. This was a good introduction.
Oh, this one's the... What the hell was that? It smells so good. No, is it? This was the herb and garlic.
Oh, you're right.
Italian herb and garlic.
Yeah.
It was so fucking good.
Yeah.
Wait, was this the herb and garlic? Wait. No, wait. Because the herb and garlic had garlic in it. That's the herb and garlic.
That's the herb and garlic, yeah.
Wait, what was the one we just had?
I can tell you because we went in order. No, that was our Italian urban cheese. Oh, because roasted garlic and rosemary.
Oh, okay.
It's Italian urban cheese.
Okay, number 2 was...
We were mixing 2 of them together.
Okay, got it. So number 2...
was Italian urban cheese.
And I give that one like a 9 out of 10.
That was my favorite one, so yeah, I give it a 9 out of 10.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, and this garlic is a 10 out of 10.
Except it hits my belly, but it tasted good.
Right, so when I actually fed you the whole loaf later, I took all the garlic.
Yeah.
This is the dill and Havarti.
Yeah.
And I was excited about it.
And
I love
that
dill.
might be your favorite because you just like...
Well, dill's my favorite herb. I actually thought it could use a little more flavor.
Yeah, I wonder if the process was she put dill on top of it after, and that's why it smelled so strong rather than being in it.
Oh, and then I also got a jalapeno cheddar loaf, which you judged me for because it wasn't part of the flight, but I needed it. And then you needed to prepare yourself with water.
Yeah, because you ended up feeding me one that had half a jalapeno in it.
Oh my god,
Ooh, it looks good. Yeah, I was impressed with the color. I really like that color.
This one was really soft.
Yeah.
Like she baked it 5 seconds ago.
Oh yeah, you said because it felt like it was fresh.
I think this one's a 10 out of 10 too.
Yeah. I was like, oh snap, that's hot.
But then we ate half the loaf for dinner. I was so upset that happened. It's only happened to me once before. It wasn't like the most detrimental, but like sourdough taste testing, you can't recreate that kind of magic. Also, I shared my first impressions of Girl Dinner, and I don't know what okay, I guess I'll just re-pitch it to you. I'm in the final third. Okay. Oh my God, I'm so annoyed. We're following two different women and we're at a school, but it's more so that there's like a house there where, like a sorority where super special elite girls get accepted into. And then when they come out of it, they're perfect and they have all the successes that they've ever wanted. So we're following Nina. She is a sophomore. She's already been there for a bit. She's had a difficult time and she wants to be accepted into this group. And then we have Dr. Sloane Hartley. Sloane is a professor at the school, as is her husband. And she had a baby 18 months ago. She stayed at home with the baby. Now she's ready to get back into everything that she needs to do. And she's always thought that her husband, like many, I feel like this is a conversation that all of you like decided to write because it's very relevant, it's very prevalent. I see the discourse happen a lot on TikTok about women who feel like even though they married, they're a man specifically, they married a great man. He seemed like he was going to be super helpful. He seemed like a feminist supporting all her dreams and whatever. And then once children come into the picture, he's so much less useful than she ever knew. Sure, he takes the kids and does stuff with them and he'll change the diaper, but he asks where the diapers are every time. When it's like, can you fill the kid, like it's enough that we have to ask the husbands to fill the juice bottle, but the husbands don't know where the juice is. They always have to ask. It's like the women are taking on this extreme mental load and it's frustrating and it's difficult and it's just kind of an expected part for a lot of people about motherhood. And I feel like when people read this book and all the things that it's talking about, because it's really harping on that for 90% of this book, it can be, good cathartic for women to feel represented in the book. It can also feel like people who have chosen not to go down that journey solidify their reasoning, that it's a difficult, no matter how perfect everything seems, once you get married and have kids, like things can change. And I just feel like Olivia Blake should maybe write an essay collection because, and I like a really hammered home point. Like I like an obvious message, but I'm thinking specifically about things like female fantasy or deep cuts where other people will say exactly what I'm saying now. But those work for me so much more than this because there's like a passion that a person has, and it's specifically about an art form, and they're sharing their passion for that, especially in like an academic way that feels like, it just makes so much more sense than how it's delivered in here. Because I understand she is going through a challenging time, but it's like every single person she talks to, she or they have like these grand exclamations about motherhood and life. And it just feels like Olivia Blake wanted to say all of these things. And I just don't know if this is the best medium for it because the plot and the characters cannot match the message. It's just like, it's not an interesting book. And when most of it is just this back and forth dialogue, it's exhausting. I find this book really exhausting. I think if you're somebody who loves video essays, like you could love this. I think if you're someone who, that scene in Barbie, that big like exclamation about women and motherhood, if that really like changed your perspective on life and really did something for you, this could also work for you. It's just not doing it for me. And I'm so deep into the book now, it's hard to talk about like what the plot necessarily is because there's a lot going on and I feel like a lot is spoilers. And honestly, I would be DNFing this if not for people talking about how there's like a twist at the end, and I want to get to that. And two, I do want to feel like I can officially pull this author off of my list of authors to read. I just keep trying her books and I know I shouldn't. Just like when I read 3 books from an author that I love all of those books, I consider them a favorite. I feel like the third and final try with this author, I can officially put her on a shelf. So both Nina and Sloane, though they're not like connected, they're not talking a lot, they're not spending a lot of time together, they have different relationships with other people. They are both brought into this house and having feelings about what the women in the house are doing or what's happening to them. It feels very heavy-handed. And a lot of other books that I've read like this, where there's a place that people go and it's elite and like you leave it feeling like everything is going to be perfect and whatever, which also feels kind of like a satirical just take on sorority in general, which is like, it's a fun concept. It just all feels so obvious, and all those other books that I've read, they usually have so much subtlety and so much mystery, and this has none of that. It's just so obvious everything that's happening, and everyone's just laying their cards out on the table, and it has the subtlety of a sledgehammer to the face. There was one quote I liked where she was talking about motherhood and how in the first couple of years of life especially, like everything in your life has to have so much purpose, because you have to have a really good reason, for a lot of mothers, they feel this way, to be leaving your baby somewhere. So like everything feels like everything you're doing, whether you're spending time with the baby or not, everything's so much more heightened. Everything has such high stakes. And that's why there's this sense of just like, I would say stress a lot of the time is when you're with your kid. Are you doing everything properly? When you're away from your kid, it's like, is this a good enough reason to be away from my kid? There's obviously a lot of pressures for motherhood, like regardless of how relatable this book can be. I just think that it's not interesting. I feel like I've heard this conversation happen 10 million times, and it just goes on and on and on and on and on. I'm going to replace a certain character's name with just women, because that's the focus of this book, is the experience of women. Women's tolerance for hardship was so much higher, had always been higher. Their ability to withstand stress, to bend but never break, had always exceeded men's. People were imperfect, of course. They had their flaws. Women could be overly sensitive. They could be unpredictable, a little too rigid. They had a temper they often lost. But women could also handle exhaustion better than men could. They could roll with every disruption, whatever conflict might arise. They took on the heavier burdens because they could, because their love was naturally generous, because women understood that stress cost them less than it did men. It's like that paragraph happens, I feel like 20 times in this book. And unfortunately, a huge portion of this to talk about would be a spoiler. So I think I'm probably going to end up rating this pretty lowly, and I'll film I have another book to add into my negative spoiler-filled reviews for my channel members at the end of the quarter. You're a woman, and it's your job to fade into the background. It's your job to make sure your children love their father and never know what a fucking idiot he is, or how little he is capable of accomplishing without you. You're a woman, and it's your job to have it all but never complain about how heavy it is to carry. You're a woman, so you must strive to achieve, even if those achievements will drive the envy that means you will always be disparaged and never be embraced. You're a woman, and you were put here to suffer and feel pain, or so people will say, and so they will act, and so you will never be properly treated, and your born-in aches will never be taken for the fatal blows that they are. You are a woman, and so the transgressions against you will always be justified in some way by what you wore or what you said or who you are, and everything bad that happens to you will always somehow be deserved, unless you die a martyr for your children, which is the only sure way to be a good woman. Because then, when you are dust and unexamined, important only for the act of ending, you will finally have the honor of being a saint. It feels like it feels like a constant episode of Grey's Anatomy where like somebody has this grand speech to declare in the middle of an emergency, and even if those portions hold some power and hold some weight with me as a reader, as a human, the rest of this is just so dull and might as well have not had a plot at all and should have just been an essay. And this is a little bit of what my struggle is with Good for Her stories, and why I don't pick them up or just like freak out over them as much as I feel like a lot of other people do. Even if I like where we get to, I feel Good for Her because it's powerful, we have to trudge through so much unhappiness, and I just don't think it's worth it, because I want to be having a good time, and if I'm not having a good time, I want to be having an interesting time, and like neither of those things is happening. Anyway, I'm excited for this to be over, and I'm gonna tell you in the morning my final rating while I film a spoiler-filled clip as well, I'm guessing. No need to harp on this one. I'm giving it 2 stars. It was not to my taste. I don't think it's the worst book. I'm not super upset either because, it's not something that I've read, because this is all about reading from my TBR closet. And it's not something that was sitting in there for years that I am disappointed by. I recently picked this up from Aardvark, and I love Aardvark. If you live in the States, you can get your first book for $4 if you use my code LALA4. I haven't had the best track record with their books, but they do put out super interesting sounding ones that are on my TBR. I think it's fun that I was eating sourdough yesterday, because sourdough is such like a trad wife thing, and this is such a trad wife themed book. It's one of like many coming out. I know I shouldn't pick this one, especially because we have such a motherhood perspective. And when I say I don't love books about motherhood, I'm always exclusively talking about early motherhood days, like becoming a mother for the first time, because I just don't know that there's any new takes on it. And I find it really exhausting to trudge through that. But I disliked this so much. I even actively disliked the acknowledgements. And I feel like the acknowledgements have left such a bad taste in my mouth. It feels like Olivia Blake like did not even care about this book and didn't want to write it and didn't even think it was good herself. A big qualm that I have is this is one of those books that you could skip the first, I would say even 200 pages of this book and it would be the same story. Like everything that is spoken about in this first 200 pages and the setup is regurgitated later anyway, that we really don't need it. There's a lot of people saying, and I think maybe it's from the perspective of like just general fiction, like general fiction lit fic readers have picked this up and they say it gets like really crazy and wacky and oh my God, and it's like gonna be way too wild for so many readers and that's why you might not like it. That is such an interesting perspective because mine, from my reading and what I typically pick up and the things I typically recommend, like this was just so nothing. And I like satire and I want to appreciate the satire, but I just feel like satire is sometimes slapped onto books as a way to excuse the hypocrisy that's happening within the pages. Like sometimes it doesn't really feel intentional, especially when a book has such a strong message of like feminism and then a lot of the characters act in the opposite as we think they're going to or they should, and it's just called like satire to make up for not giving us complex reasonings behind things. So we can just read it and go, well, it doesn't have to make sense because it was just silly, goofy time. You're just supposed to turn your brain off and enjoy. I think it was trying way too hard with its quotes, but I think all the quotes that I tabbed are spoilers anyway. But there was one where she was like, I can't be expected to girl boss under these conditions. And like, you're supposed to think that's funny. And I just didn't think it was funny. So me and Olivia Blake just have a different sense of humor. And yeah, I need to move on to the final book. Final wheel, final spin, final book. These are our options for H. Hamnet, Homesick for Another World, Haunted, His Only Wife, Hard Copy, Hafsa to Bebi, How to End a Love Story, and Heartwood. As you'll see here, the green slices all say viewer's choice. And I already know the viewer's choice because I was inundated with comments saying like, I don't care about any of the other letters. I don't want to vote for anything. I just want to vote for H and I want you to read Hamnet. Something fun about Hamnet, there's a rabbit. There's a rabbit on the cover. If for some reason you don't know the lore of this channel and rabbits, I can't get into it. But I have my rabbit shirt on to manifest Hamnet. I want to watch the adaptation. Can't do that until I read this. Am I excited to read it? Kind of no, but it's one that I think I'll like. It's based on Shakespeare. I think it sounds like kind of dry, but I'm sure it's great. And I think I'm gonna land on it because I have like a, 1 in 3 chance of spinning that right now. Would I want to read, like honestly, kind of any of these? I really want to read Heartwood. This is the most recent addition to my TBR closet. I really want to read How to End a Love Story because this has so many mixed reviews. People love it or hate it. I really want to read this. And these 3 have been on my TBR for like, I don't know, 6+ years maybe. Let's put it right on Hamnet. Let's hold up Hamnet and let's get Hamnet. Viewer's choice. Okay. I'll go into the comments and I will tally everything up and I'll let you know how many votes this actually got. But of course we got Hamnet. It was meant to be. 50% of the people who voted for an H book voted for Hamnet. What's so interesting about this is I don't think when this was up for a Goodreads Choice Award, it even made it into the top 10, I want to say. Meanwhile, now it is far and away like the most read since that time. It's been appreciated more and more over the years since it's been published, even though obviously it was appreciated in the moment. Obviously becoming a TV show or a movie has made it even more of a thing. And I was really excited to watch it. I just hit part 2 and I don't know, I just think this book is fine. And now I don't feel as excited to watch the movie. I'm sure I still will, but I thought it was going to be like a back-to-back experience for me, that I would be obsessed with this and then I would have to go watch that right away. But okay, here's the thing. I like everything that she's doing with this book, Maggie O'Farrell. I agree with every choice that she's making. I think everything about this is right and good. I just don't love it. And I saw a lot of people, friends of mine on Goodreads, DNF it early. And people in their comments would say, no, like you have to get to the 50% mark. You have to get to this really emotionally impactful moment. Like it builds and it gets so good. And I've gotten there. And this was also recommended a lot to me, or just mentioned a lot in the survey I put out where I asked you to tell me books that made you feel really emotionally impacted, either really happy or really sad or really shocked. And this showed up a lot for the cry category. And so I thought I was going to be tandem reading this for both vlogs, but it just isn't having that emotional impact on me. And I'm really surprised. Let me read you, what's interesting also about this being marketed is I think this synopsis is quite different than the one I have ever seen. So if you don't know anything about Hamnet, Hamnet is the child of William Shakespeare. And this is a story of, it's not his story. Well, it is, but it's more Shakespeare's wife's story. Anne, or Agnes, I think pronounced Agnes here. I fear I can't really talk about this book without talking about the central theme of it. So if you really want to know nothing, I think you just need to skip this entire review and the video's over for you. Sorry, love you so much as a friend. See you later. In this, like the regular synopsis, it says Agnes is a woman as feared as she is sought after for her unusual gifts. That's not even the spoiler part. She settles with her husband in Henley Street, Stratford, and has 3 children, a daughter, Susanna, and then twins, Hamnet and Judith. The boy, Hamnet, dies in 1596, aged 11. 4 years or so later, the husband writes a play called Hamlet. That is the story of Shakespeare. That's not like the book, that's reality, but I think some people might not know that. And so I wonder if it was getting remarketed because a lot of people were surprised by the death of Hamnet halfway through. And so this just talks more about Agnes. We have a young Latin tutor, penniless and bullied by a violent father, falls in love with an extraordinary, eccentric young woman. Agnes is a wild creature who walks her family's land with a falcon on her glove and is known throughout the countryside for her unusual gifts as a healer, understanding plants and potions better than she does people. Once she settles with her husband on Henley Street in Stratford-upon-Avon, she becomes a fiercely protective mother and a steadfast centrifugal force in the life of her young husband, whose career on the London stage is just taking off when his beloved young son succumbs to a sudden fever. Okay, so I guess that also talks about that, but isn't centrally around the fact that he dies, which is fair because we're in two different timelines. They're both moving through time. One is this young woman's life as she approaches, I would say like it's the approach to birth, and then the other timeline is an approach to death, both regarding her son Hamnet. So I like what Maggie O'Farrell is doing with the 2 different timelines. I like that we don't get distinct chapter titles that are like before and after, or now and then, or like 3 months later or whatever. It's just kind of flowing. I like that William Shakespeare is not the sole focus of the story. He's in it, but he's like not even named, which I think is interesting. I like that Agnes is given these little kind of gifts. It's more so just about her feeling like she can know things, she can understand things, and she feels really close to nature. And even like her birth in the woods is really important to her. And it's a story of a woman being controlled in a lot of ways, and her really having this independence and wanting to do what she wants and knowing what is best, and people around her trying to choose who she becomes, who she should be with, where she should live. And she just feels a passion for her own decision-making abilities. And now I'm assuming with this section at the end that now we're going to follow more of William's career, or how I guess the death of their son impacts them differently. I think her having this it's not like a supernatural kind of story, but her having this oddness definitely fits with the type of work that Shakespeare pens. And I just don't know that I ever really wanted to read about Shakespeare. In all of the years that I've read Shakespeare-inspired stories, it's been based off of his plays. And I love things inspired by him, and I love all of his stuff. Not that this is a history of him, but I don't think I ever really wanted this in general, even though I think she's doing a good job of building out this family and giving us emotions. The descriptions are lovely. I expected to be like really, really moved, and I just think it's a good book. I think I'm just grieving the idea of leaving every alphabet video with a 5-star, because this one, we're not gonna get there. Welcome to the most underwhelming review ever, because I think I just said everything I wanted to say. Like I have no additional thoughts 70 pages later. I don't know what I'm giving this. Well, obviously it doesn't feel like a 4, so I'm gonna give it a 3.75. I do like books about grief, and I think the descriptions got really like painful and beautiful regarding everything that happened at the end of part 1 and into part 2, with how the family was all dealing with this differently. I really wish I had loved this. I really wanted to love this. But you know, at the end of the year, I will give this, I thought I got this maybe from my local used bookstore, but I guess not. But I will send it to them, and they can, you know, have a buyer who will appreciate it more than me. Now, I'm not going to commit to my next alphabet one being like 4, 5, 6, 7 books. I have no idea how many letters I'm going to get through, but I will show you everything that starts with I, J, and K, so you can vote down below. There are so many I's here. Like I couldn't have predicted which letters were more prominent than others. I probably would have expected like R, S, and T to be the most represented, but I don't think I could have seen coming. Here's everything that I've got. I'm not going to read you all of the titles, but if you care to pause and vote for one that you want me to read in the next video, then yeah, I would love that from you. And then for J's, I just have 4. These are the contenders for J. And then we've only got 3 K's, and they all are the word kill. So do you want me to kill the beast? Do you want me to kill the farm boy? Or do you want me to kill the creatures? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you. I don't think I'll probably do an alphabet video in April, but probably May. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you around. Bye!